double languids. Anybody familiar with the organ here at Boardwalk Hall has heard the term double languids when referring to flue pipes. That is to say principals, strings, and flutes. Not trumpets or oboes or tubas, but flue pipes. Principals, flutes, and strings. Why did this organ end up with so many? And this organ does have more double languid pipes in it than any other organ on the face of the earth. Well, let's refer to the patent that Vincent Willis, not Henry Vincent Willis, but Vincent Willis, eldest son of Father Willis. Is that right? Yes. I'm reading the Stephen Smith book here, of course, great reference for everything I do. And the patent said back in 1908, the invention is an attempt to enable the organ builder to obtain, when necessary, diapason or other tones found in the organ in greater power of volume than heretofore, and without the deterioration or change in quality of tone which attends and therefore limits the increase of volume of sound by ordinary methods. But the invention is also useful when a higher development is sought without an increase of tonal output. So what he's saying is you can make the pipes louder in the first place, or at the same volume you can have more harmonic development. When he says higher development is sought without an increase of tonal output, he means more brightness of tone without more volume. Okay, well, we know that this organ's all about volume and brightness, right? So Emerson Richards said, let's put lots of double languid pipes in here. Now, before we understand what the double languid does, let's talk about single languid pipes. And for this, we need to go back to basic pipe construction. So this is a pipe out of horn diapason, voice number 85, which has a regular single languid. Let me get my flashlight here. This pipe has standard construction, and it has a regular languid in it, right there. That plate of metal that goes across the pipe inside there, that is the languid of the pipe. So the air comes up the foot of the pipe, remember pipes are anatomically incorrect, and forms a wind sheet between the lower lip and the languid, which then hits the upper lip and creates oscillations because the pipe is alternately filled with compressed air or a vacuum. Of course, it's not much of a compression or a vacuum, but that's how pipes work. But this one languid here is what creates the wind sheet, which hits the upper lip and makes the pipe speak. So that's your typical single languid pipe. A double languid pipe, such as this example from the walled flute, voice number 63, has an extra piece of metal in it. There is a second languid above the first languid. That is the double languid, and you can see on the sides of the pipe where the pipe was cut apart, the other languid soldered in, and then the top put back on. The double languid goes in the back of the pipe and then it raises up, so there's communication with the back of the pipe through the slot formed between the upper languid and the lower languid. The upper one is always called the second languid. So in a double languid pipe, this upper one is always called the second languid. But that is your typical double languid pipe. Right there. So I'm going to put this back. So what does it do? What does it really do? What does that second languid make a pipe? How does a pipe behave when it has a double languid compared to a single languid? Well, we're going to conduct a little experiment and we're going to find out empirically. But before we do that, I interviewed Brant Duddy yesterday. Today's May 15th, so yesterday on May 14th, while Brant was here at the shop, I wired him up for sound and asked him for his thoughts, because he's worked on so many of them, on what double languids, his experience with them. And let's take a look at that recording now. Brant has worked on more pipes in this organ than probably the rest of us put together. And so I wanted to get his take on double languid pipes and how they compare to their single languid counterparts. So what has been your experience on the voicing machine with double languid pipes? What are your thoughts? What's your take?
it's a very interesting sound that they produce. The languid itself, this little piece of metal here, acts as a tone chute, if you will.
Let me bring the camera over here so we can get a close-up of that. I wasn't going to do this, but actually it's a really good thing to do. Let's see. Okay. Yeah.
Now this
turn this.
Okay. Well, I was going to turn it to give an idea of the angle.
Right.
That's inside.
Gotcha.
So the pipe was obviously manufactured and then cut apart, and then the second languid added. It acts as a diversionary wind sheet. It's got to be parallel in the front here.
So in this case, this is a pipe from the
solo organ, yes. It's a tibia close. It's going to be fat by nature. The metal here takes care of the fact of no leather lip, which will turn around and, as it rots, will shrink the leather. The old Esty pipework showed a lot of that.
Yeah. Now, one thing that I found interesting that you talked about was how it appears that they voiced with the double languid in place and how they cut it back.
Well, it almost had to be on air, and as the pipe construction shows, the languid was actually added all the way to the lip in the front. And as the men were working with the pipe, they would scrape this thing back until the bloom started to form. This creates a little suction vacuum, in a sense, into the back of the pipe. It's open in the back of the pipe. I don't know how visible this will be. Back in here. And that's open. It's open about 10% in the back there.
There you can see the back languid.
Right.
Oh, we got a blower turned on here. Let me close this door. That's not so bad. Okay.
No.
That's better.
That's just the wind coming in for this side.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's diverting some of this air gets more of the air in the pipe in motion completely. The complete column gets a shot of air as opposed to just in the front. So that you basically can add about 40% more volume of tone from the pipe itself having that diversionary wind sheet in there. And
do you think it does more on the lower the pressure, does it do more on higher pressure, or is it the same, or the higher the pressure it has more effect?
No, we've got some of the Schulze chorus has double languid in it. That's on 4 inches. Same thing. It does not seem to matter what the pressure is. This is the secret. This is a little piece of metal in there. That actionary helping suck, if you will. You put a little piece of paper, you'd see it drawn in.
And that's very interesting. Usually it blows out.
It blows out.
The double languid that's going in.
It sucks it in, yes. So there's a considerable difference in range of power. The thing that makes this organ unique, most instruments have maybe 1 or 2 of these. This organ's got 64 sets of double languids. And they're both wood and metal, which is the other thing proving very interesting. So for me, it's been a learning experience and a lot of fun to try and hear this and what I can do to influence it to make them sound decent. So it's indescribable. I don't know how else to say it. It's just a perfect experience for me. And as you come into the instrument itself and listen, the double diapason languid affair does add a bloom to the sound, and it's been I'd say a worthwhile contribution, especially considering what this room is, how large it is. These are what make it happen in this particular set of acoustics.
What do you think that there's a few ranks in here that had double languids and they took them back out? Can you speculate on what the problem was? Because it doesn't make any sense to me.
No. What usually has happened in that case, the cut-ups are slightly higher than they would be with just a single languid in it. And as a result of that, they tend to be a little bit on the windy side and not very musical.
That noise in the background, by the way, is the wind shutting down. Somebody had the high pressure crate on, now it's fading out.
But it's, there have been a few wood pipes in which the languid itself has gotten a ripple to it. Two of them had nothing in it at all, just a wood pipe trying to blow away. And it sounded like a foghorn. And the minute that we were able to, by manipulation, it was softer metal than what these pieces were, but getting something back in to perform that operation brought the pipe back to match its brothers. So it is a significant asset to tone.
I can think of only one set of pipes off the top of my head that have both double languids and roller beards. Were there any more? Because the big 32-foot in the left chamber has both double languids and roller beards. Did you see any more like that?
No, I have not. No. It's definitely one of a kind.
Yes,
definitely.
Yes. Well, and I can think of only a couple of other organs that have the double languids, and there's the Shrine of the Little Flower in Detroit.
Detroit, yes.
Kilgan.
The Kilgan, I've worked on that one.
And of course, the Wanamaker organ has the double languid solo diapason.
Yes. But in the Shrine of the Little Flower, it's only one diapason, and it's #1 on the grate. But yes,
there's only one double languid diapason at Wanamaker's, isn't there?
That's correct. That's the big major open up in front of the solo.
And then there's a few in England. That's it.
That's it. Yeah. This is the largest collection any place.
Right. And that certainly makes this organ unique.
In that very fact alone. That very fact.
Right. Okay, well, I think we'll
Most
wrap
interesting.
it up there. Anything else?
Nope, not really, but I thank you for listening.
Okay, well, I think our audience is going to appreciate it too, because I think I can speak for all the organ buffs out there who have been paying attention to this project, that you've been a major part of it for so long that it wouldn't be the same without you.
Well, I had the opportunity, or whatever you wish to call it, to try to bring this to life back in 2015. And of course, I'm just a young whippersnapper at this point. But to get the interest in the younger folks involved to carry on what we initially started, and it's really come full circle. It's beautiful. What is so amazing to hear the vitality, the genius behind the thought used to put this instrument together is finally being heard for the first time. Really heard. And to me, it's a very fulfilling experience. I'm just glad to have had the opportunity.
So here's what's going to happen. These pipes, 1, 2, 3, are out of the unenclosed choir division on the other side of the hall. I'm in the voicing room here. Voice number 166, principal from 8-foot principal from the unenclosed choir division on 3 3/4 inches of wind, and with double languids. See the extra seam there? So these 3 pipes have double languids. These 3 pipes right here were made by my friends at Organ Supply Industries. Thanks, guys, for getting them to me in time. And nice touch. They stamped my initials into them before they rolled them. That was nice. I've never had my initials on a pipe. They all say CN on them. Anyway, these pipes are completely unvoiced. Won't make a sound. So I'm going to voice them to match these from the ground up. All the parameters have been copied. The diameter and the mouth width, when they were built, were made to these measurements. I'm going to cut them up and open up the toe holes the same amount so that they're all getting the same wind. They're all cut up the same amount. They'll be tuned the same way. And we'll see what the tonal output is and what the difference in tone is as close as I can get them. Now, there are small differences that I can't account for. For example, these are made out of spotted metal and these are made out of lead. But the lead here is relatively thin. It's not super thin, but it's not super thick, heavy-duty lead like you would have on something on really high wind pressure. So I don't think that's going to make much of a difference. The languid angle can have a variation in sound. The angle of the bevel on the front of the languid, along with the thickness of the languid, can have some bearing on the sound as well. But again, not as much of a difference as the overall scale, that is to say the width to the height ratio, and the mouth width. So I'm going to start the voicing process with cutting up. Okay, so I took a measurement of the mouth height of the pipe over there with some dividers, and it's that measurement. So what we do is we have it right along the lower lip, and I scribe a line right there for me to cut the metal away, and that is the cut up dimension. So then we take a knife and we literally just start cutting away the metal, and you can bend the ears out a little bit so they don't get clobbered, and you just literally cut the metal away like that. And you just keep going until you reach that line. So I'm going to keep doing this. I'm going to pause the camera and get this up to that point, and then we'll do the next step. All right, the upper lip has now been cut to the correct dimension. Take the metal shavings and dump them out, because when you cut that away, the metal shavings just fall in there. You don't need that. So now the other part, which I would call the pre-voicing process, is that you have to open the toe of the pipe, right? Because that's closed off. It's been coned in at the shop, but no air is going to get through there. So I measured the other pipe with a ring gauge, and it was 11.5, which I guess this is, well, it has to be millimeters. So we have to open up this toe hole so that we can get to the 11.5 mark on here. And what we do is take a reaming tool and just go to town on it and just get in there and start opening it up. Now you'll notice that as this opens up, it's creating this sharp lip here, which isn't good, but we're going to get rid of that later. So we stop, check. That's only up to the 8 mark, so we need to keep going. Nine. Got a ways to go yet. It's a very open toe. And we're removing metal the whole time with this. Almost. There. It's almost to the 11 mark. It's a little bit shy of that, but that's okay. I'm going to dump out the metal shavings and then take a countersink tool and just start going around and getting rid of that lip. Because if you leave a burr on the toe of the pipe, it can create terrible wind noise. So you want to get rid of all the sharp corners as much as you can. And clean that up a little bit. There. And now this pipe is what I would call pre-voiced. The toe is open enough, the cut-up has been created, nothing has been done with the languid. We may need to put some nicks in there, and it has not been cut to pitch. Pipes are always supplied from the pipe maker too long, generally, unless you specify something very specific, so that you cut it to pitch in whatever situation you have. Because if the wind pressure changes, if the wind pressure goes up, the pipe needs to be longer and lower, vice versa, etc. There are so many variables at that generally pipes are left to be trimmed by whoever's installing them, generally. If you order them voiced, then they can be cut to pitch. So I'm going to put this pipe aside and do the other two the same way. One of the voicing parameters, which I have not yet duplicated, is what's called nicking. And I'm going to get the flashlight here. If you look, you can see little ridges on the lower lip and some on the outer lip, those little notches, which are called nicks, and they stabilize the speech. And in the 1960s, it was very, 50s and 60s, even 70s, it was very fashionable to leave them out to try to create more chiff and transient noise when the pipe came on speech, but we're not after that. So I need to duplicate this on the replacement pipe, and the best thing to use on these, oops, see the pipe comes from the pipe maker complete without any nicking in there. And so the best thing to use is actually, I think, just an X-Acto knife, and we just go through and you just literally put little notches in there, approximately the same way Midmer did. It's not going to be exact, but this will be close enough. This is usually considered part of the finishing process, but back in the 20s and teens, it was part of the pre-voicing process to put the nicks into the languid like that. Now the other thing I need to do is to skive the upper lip, that is to put a bevel on it, which is difficult just because of the tools I brought with me, but I'll have to do that on the 3 pipes. So I'm going to go through the other 2 pipes and put the nicks in the languid and then skive the upper lips, and then I think they're ready to be put on the voicing machine. All right, so all the pipes have been prepped. They've had their toes opened, they've been cut up, metal removed, they've had nicks put in them, and I skived the upper lips a little bit, maybe not quite as much as what Midmer-Losh did, but pretty darn close. So the wind on the voicing machine is set to 4 inches. Now the pipes were originally voiced on 4 3/4. It's kind of tricky with the VFD arrangement on the voicing machine to get it within 1/4 of an inch, and I think it's going to be just fine. So the original pipes here sound like this. Now you're hearing the sound through my lapel mic. It's not the best, but there's no great way to do this. And here are the pipes that are new, and they sound like this. They're making no sound at all, but there is air going through them. Here, I'll take off the lapel mic, I'll put it up close. So that's how much noise pipes will make straight from the pipe maker. They don't make any sound. We have to adjust the languid and the upper lip. Basically, those are the 2 major adjustments to get these things to speak. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to find, Nick, do they have any weights to put on the keys?
I shove it.
Oh, just use a pencil or something?
Shove a thing.
Okay. You what? That'll work. Okay, great. Thanks. Nick Myers is sitting over there busying himself with computer work, but he's also in the background when I'm making this video, and he helped with accessories. So I'm going to hold that down. So now wind is coming out of this pipe. I mean, I can feel the stream of air coming out of there, and it's a lot, but it's not making a sound. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm looking at this, I'm seeing that the upper lip is pushed in somewhat, so it needs to come out. That looks about right. And now, my favorite part is lowering the languid, and this is kind of fun because usually when you're voicing a pipe like this, a lot of times, let me make sure that's right, you can blow on it and it'll start to speak. You hear that? Let me, I was trying to wave at it with my hand, but that didn't work. But I'm blowing the wind sheet inside the pipe. and it makes it speak briefly, but the adjustments aren't correct, so the wind sheet starts coming back out, so it doesn't make any sound. So we're going to lower the languid so that the wind sheet adjusts and hits the upper lip. Almost. Ta-da! Still slow. So we need to go a little more. That's pretty good. Maybe a little more. There. That sounds really good to me. Now, just out of curiosity, let's compare it with this one. This one's speaking a lower pitch. Well, they haven't been trimmed to pitch yet. Okay, now let's go on to the next one. Again. See? It just needs that little bit. The upper lip looks pretty good. The flue looks a little bit narrow. The gap between the languid and the lower lip looks a little bit narrow. So let's adjust that. Okay. Almost. There we go. And now the last one. When you get into the smaller pipes, it's harder to use a hammer and a little languid tool, so the best thing to use is just a metal rod that's had its sharp edges taken off. We can just reach down in there and tap the languid down. Voila. And that's it. That's all it needed. So these pipes were tuned to C at A440 pitch before I started. And these actually seem to be sharper, so I guess they don't need any trimming at all, which is great. I hate pipe trimming. It takes up a lot of time and it's a waste of metal. So let's tune them. Okay, And there you have it, with double languids and without. With, without. With. Now this is the first run through. I mean, just getting them on speech, not trying to adjust anything very finely. I am going to pause the camera now. Well, it's almost time for the noon recital, which is being played by Dylan Shaw today, which I'm looking forward to. And I'm going to work with these and try to do some fine adjustments and some finishing, if you will, to see if I can get them to sound more like the double languid ones. Because if you notice the top one of both sound almost identical. But the next one down sounds very different. That one's very dull and kind of fluty sounding. That has a nice bright principal tone. And then the lowest one is duller. Not bad, but it's definitely more dull sounding than this one. So the question is, after I mess with it and keep trying to finish them to try to make them sound as close as I can get them, will they or not? And that may be the difference with the double languid. So I'm going to pause here and come back after a while. All right, so I spent considerable time messing with the pipes and trying to get them to sound as similar as I can get them from the double languid to the single, to match them up. The single languid pipes needed more wind. That is to say, they needed their toes opened up to try to get them as bright as these, but they're still not quite there. But this is as close as I got them. And they're pretty close, but not exactly the same. You'll be hearing this through my lapel mic, so hopefully it'll be okay. So double languid, single languid, double languid, single, double, single, and single. There is definitely an edge to the tone, which some voicers call edge tone, which is more of a thing in string voicing. But you can definitely hear some higher harmonic content in these, in the double languid, as you can in the single languid. There's no way around it. There's something a little bit more dull in the single languid ones, especially with this cut up that high. And as I said, I had to open these up past where these toe holes are to get them to sound as close as I could get them. Okay, so now here's where the rubber meets the road. I'm going to go back there and I'm going to crank up the VFD on the blower up to about 5 inches of wind, and let's see what happens as we increase the wind pressure, how the two sets react. Okay, so I've raised the pressure on the VFD. We're up at 5 inches of wind pressure now, so we're an inch over basically where we started. Now that doesn't sound like much, but as a percentage, that's a lot. Of course, it's low for what's used in this organ, but still, in organ terms, you know, the percentage-wise, it's a lot. So at 5 inches of wind, double languids are going just fine. They're getting louder, but they hang out. They hang together. The single languids, though, that one's unhappy already. The other two are hanging in there. I might be able to fix that by raising the languid a little bit, maybe. We'll try it. Barely. But the double languids are hanging in there just fine. All right, I'm going to go back and raise the VFD up to 8 inches. So we'll be on fully double the wind pressure it was designed for, and let's see what happens. Okay, the wind pressure has now been fully doubled to 8 inches of wind, and there's a kind of a strange pattern emerging that these two pipes, the 2-foot Cs, are both having trouble where the upper pipes are working just fine. So even the double languid 2-foot C is starting to get pretty unhappy, but the other two aren't happy, whereas on the single languid, the 2-foot C is now not usable, but the other two are fine. So I guess we're going to keep going. Let's see what happens when we go even higher. Who knows? Okay, we're up at 10 inches of wind pressure now. Things are getting interesting. So the 2-foot on the double languid pipe is now no good. And this is without, I'm not trying to adjust anything. This is straight off the chest as it was. I'm not trying to make it better. I may be able to, but I'm not going to mess with these pipes like that. High pipes on the other hand, I'm willing to do that. But the 2-foot C, no good. 1-foot C is starting to get a little raspy. Half-foot C is doing pretty good. On the single language side, 2-foot C is no good, but the other two are just fine. I'm debating how much farther to go with this, but I'll tell you what, let's go to 15 inches of wind pressure, and I'll call it quits there. And if nothing changes, I'll call it a draw, all right? So I'm gonna go back there and change the VFD for the last time. All right, so I've gone back there, pumped up the VFD, not quite as far as it'll go completely, but pretty close. And this is now on 15 inches of wind. And the results are strange, I would say. So the double languid stop has pretty much fallen apart at this point. That's barely speaking its unison pitch. That's alternating between its fundamental and octave, so it's overblowing. And then the single languid ones are doing the same thing. Oops. Completely unusable. So I'm kind of surprised that the double languid pipes at this point are not usable, just like the single languid pipes are. I'm going to try adjusting the double languid pipes just a little bit that I can put back so that it won't sound any different when it goes back over in the enclosed choir. But I'm not going to do anything radical, but I'm going to try raising the language just a hair to see if I can get them to speak on this pressure. All right, so I messed with the pipes a little bit, mainly raising the upper languid, as per Nick's suggestion. Nick's sitting over there on the computer watching what I'm doing, and has actually been quite a bit of help during this video. So anyway, no. But it didn't change it. And of course the single languids aren't usable at all at that wind pressure. So I'm going to conclude from this little test, with this small sample, small data collection point, if you will, that the double languids do give more harmonic structure, a brighter sound at a given wind pressure, but they don't change how they handle increased pressure. You can't just put a double languid in a pipe and expect to drive it super hard and have it work right. According to what I've done here, and admittedly this is a small sample, it didn't work. It just didn't. The pipes started misbehaving identically for any given wind pressure. But on the wind pressure they were designed for, they were definitely brighter. And as Nick pointed out, and I totally agree with him, this organ, what did you say, this organ has what, 70 ranks? 70-something ranks of double languid pipes in it throughout the organ. And maybe that's why, when you're sitting in the back of the room, it sounds so bright and the organ has so much presence, is because it's not just that it's all big and loud and on high pressure, but it's possible that the double languids are having some effect on the overall tonal structure of the organ, giving it that extra brightness to cut into the room and give it the character that it does. So, Hope you found that interesting. I know I did. And I'm going to leave the pipes here, and later on the guys here at the hall are going to swap out the pipes just for fun up on the great 4-inch chest and see what the difference is out in the hall between the single and double languids on the pressure they were designed for originally, and see what the impact is out in the room. So I hope you found that enjoyable, and I'm going to sign off.